It's time for a new reading strategy to help you better comprehend or understand text. This reading strategy is infer and predict. Let's go over our objectives for the lesson. By the end of this lesson, I hope you are able to refer to details and examples in a story, drawing on details in the text when making inferences and predictions. Good readers infer and predict before, during, and after reading. But before we talk about how to infer and how to predict, let's talk about what exactly these are. When you infer, you explain something that is not directly stated in the text. Sometimes the author doesn't tell you everything. When you predict, you try to figure out what is going to happen next in the story, based on the text evidence before the author actually tells them. Why do we infer and predict? We do so to really check our understanding of the text. Sometimes the author does not give you all the information you need to understand everything that's happening in a text. Instead, the author gives you clues. You can use the author's clues along with what you already know to make an inference. And finally, we infer and predict to make what you are reading personable and something for you to remember. So how do I infer both during and after reading? Your first step is to look for clues that the author gives you, including what characters say, plot events, and descriptions. Your next step is to think about the main ideas of the text and the genre or type of story. Finally, you need to combine your clues with your schema to infer. Remember, schema is that knowledge that you already have in your brain. So use what you see in the text, what you know in your brain, and put it together to come up with an inference or an understanding about the text. Now let's talk about how we would predict both before and during reading. Your first step is to analyze the clues from your inference, from the book title, from text illustrations, from characters' words, thoughts, feelings, and actions. After you've analyzed those clues, you'll want to guess what will happen next. Try and look into that mirror ball to see what's in the future. When you infer and predict, it is as easy as putting all the puzzle pieces together. Remember, you use all the clues that the author gives you, the schema in the back of your brain, to put together and come up with an inference or a prediction about what will happen next. Let's practice. I'm going to reread page 142 and show you just how I would make an inference and make a prediction. As he grew older, Stormy was the main attraction of Cape Cod. He didn't care for all the attention. However, it reminded him that he was different from everyone else. After school, he always tried to slip away to the sea. He liked to swim out into the deep water and ride the whales and porpoises. Stormy's love for the ocean was so strong that folks used to say he had salt water in his veins. By the time Stormy was 12, he was already 6 fathoms tall, or 36 feet. "I guess you're going to have to go out into the world now," his friend said sadly. "The truth is, you've grown too big for this town. You can't fit in the schoolhouse, and you're too tall to work in a store. Maybe you should go to Boston. It's a lot bigger than Cape Cod." Stormy felt like an outcast. As he packed his truck, hoisted it over his shoulder, and started away. And when he arrived in Boston, he discovered something that made him even sadder. Although the city had more buildings than Cape Cod, they were just as small. Worse than that, his huge size and foghorn voice scared the daylights out of everyone he met. "A sailor's life is the only one for me," he said, staring longingly at Boston Harbor. "The sea's my best friend. It's with her that I belong." And with his back to Boston, Stormy strode toward the biggest Yankee clipper docked in the harbor, the Lady of the Sea. Let's practice taking a look at what we see in the text, understanding the schema in our brain to make inferences and predictions. Here is the text evidence that I read. Stormy has thoughts about being different and has a dislike of attention. The schema that I know in my brain is that people who feel different often try to stay away from other people. When I put these two pieces of information together, I can make an inference and understand that the reason Stormy spends so much time in the sea is because he feels like an outcast. I can also predict what's going to happen next. I predict that Stormy will spend more time in the ocean. Let's try another example. I'm going to reread pages 144 to 145 and show how I would infer and predict. The sailors were a bit shocked when the captain introduced the 36-foot giant as their new cabin boy. But the day soon came when all of the sailors of the Lady of the Sea completely accepted Stormy's awesome size. It happened one morning when the clipper was anchored off the coast of South America. "Hoist the anchor!" the captain shouted after a few hours of deep-sea fishing. But when the crew pulled on the great chain, nothing happened. The sailors heaved and hoed and still could not move the anchor off the bottom of the ocean. "Let me take care of it," Stormy boomed. Then the cabin boy climbed onto the bowsprit and dived into the sea. After Stormy disappeared, terrible sounds came from the water. The ship began pitching and tossing on wild, foaming waves. It seemed that all aboard were about to be hurled into a wet grave when suddenly the sea grew calm again, and Stormy bobbed to the surface. Hand over hand, he climbed the anchor chain, nearly pulling the ship onto her side with his great weight. As soon as he was safely aboard, he yanked up the anchor, and once again the Lady of the Sea began to glide through the ocean. "What happened?" cried the crew. "Just a little fight with a 2-ton octopus," said Stormy. "Octopus?" "Aye, he didn't want to let go of our anchor." "What'd you do to him?" cried the others. "Wrestled 8 slimy tentacles into double knots. It'll take a month of Sundays for him to untie himself." From then on, Stormy was the most popular sailor on board. Over the next few years, his reputation spread too, until all the Yankee clipper crews wanted him to sail with them. Let me take a look at my text evidence. I read about Stormy's actions, and his actions are that he dives into the ocean to help free the anchor. He does so by fighting an octopus. Let me think about what I know in my brain, or my schema. Well, I know that diving into a vast ocean is scary and dangerous. I also know that people who do something dangerous to help others are brave. It takes strength to battle a giant octopus and carry an anchor. When I put what I see in the text and what I know in my brain together, I can make an inference. I can infer that Stormy is very brave, strong, and helpful. What do I know about people who are very brave, strong, and helpful? Let me pull from my schema. I know that people often admire others who are helpful, strong, and brave. I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction. I predict that the other sailors will admire Stormy because of his character traits. I can also predict that Stormy will continue to perform amazing feats. Boys and girls, it is now your turn to show what you know about making inferences and predictions. On Google Classroom, you will see this worksheet here and a video read aloud link to another tall tale about John Henry. Go ahead and answer these questions here about making an inference and predictions. I have also included times for you to stop at in the video, as well as some pages from the text for you to refer to. Go ahead and show what you know.